Welcome to an audio-only edition of the Zen Watercooler podcast. I hope wherever you are, you're a lot warmer than I am. I'm based in Canada, and it's freezing bloody cold over here. It is the winter time. And not only is it freezing cold, but there's an interloper in our print-on-demand party. I'm sure you've noticed over the last couple years that we've seen an increase of AI-generated designs on all platforms. Could be Redbubble, merch by Amazon, Displate, TeePublic, you name it. It seems like the robots are slowly taking over, and people are not happy about it. Now, some people are relatively indifferent. Some people love it, and some people hate it. So in this edition, I'm going to be talking specifically about AI and how you can use it if you like. This is not a sales pitch. I'm not trying to convince you that now suddenly the future is bright and it's only paved with artificial intelligence. It's more a plea for understanding, to say this is the new reality. We're sitting in this whether we like it or not. And can we use this in such a way that we're not constantly pulling our hair out or living in fear that our society is going to crumble into some dystopian nightmare where every time you go onto a print-on-demand website, you're just completely overwhelmed with low-grade, crappy designs from robots. So as we jump in here, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's listening to these podcasts. I do get feedback on the channel, so if you do find these helpful, feel free to throw me a comment down below. No pressure. I'm certainly not one to beg for likes or for follows or anything like that. But if you find this helpful, that really does make my heart sing. The whole point of these podcasts is to help share some of my knowledge, and I would love it if you have knowledge to share as well. That would be wonderful. I really do feel like this is an opportunity for us to sort of shoot the breeze as if we were coworkers working in the big print-on-demand factory, and it's really kind of fun to talk about the industry. So let's take a look here at what's been going on the last couple years. I've noticed it at least the last 2 years. I'm sure it goes back farther than that, but it seems like AI is just popping up all over the place. So what are we talking about here when we talk about AI? What is AI? Well, the whole thing kind of started, at least got onto my radar a little while ago with this thing called ChatGPT. So I don't claim to be some huge expert in the ChatGPT world. However, it really fell onto my radar when I was out for dinner with a friend, and they were raving about how cool this new thing called ChatGPT was. Now, you can go to a website called openai.com, or you can just Google ChatGPT, and it'll come to a website that's under openai.com. And it basically says November 30th, 2022, introducing ChatGPT. So this is about exactly 2 years ago, and this OpenAI company is bragging that they've trained a model, which is basically like software, called ChatGPT, which interacts in a conversational way. This dialogue format makes it possible for ChatGPT to answer follow-up questions, admits its mistakes, challenges incorrect premises, and rejects inappropriate requests. So the whole idea, the big leap forward with this computer model was that it was starting to learn. It was starting to teach or learn through data and change its programming. So this can be a real game changer. I don't know if you ever watched the game show Jeopardy. I've watched it a couple times over the years. And at one point, a few years back, they had a computer play on Jeopardy instead of a human. And so the computer's name was Deep Blue. And if I remember correctly, Deep Blue came on the Jeopardy show, and at first it lost, and then it came on again with improved AI, and it won. In fact, it destroyed everybody. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page here, and it says that it was IBM Watson was the name of the program, and it came on to Jeopardy in 2011, and it beat champions Brad Rutter and Ken Jennings, winning the first place prize of $1 million. Wow, that's pretty impressive. You may have heard as well, chess programs are now so smart that it pretty much beats every human being on the planet. So we find this disturbing on some level. We find these sort of stories when they come out in the news and you're sitting there sipping your tea, eating your crumpets, reading the news. There's something about these stories that just doesn't sit well on some level with a lot of people. when we really drill down on it, we have to ask ourselves, why is AI disturbing? Now, again, this is not a podcast to condemn AI. This is also not a sales pitch. I'm not brainwashed by the robots where I'm going to tell you to love AI. To me, it's like anything else in the world. It's a tool, and we need to figure out a way that we're not angry about it, but we can use it to our advantage. So why are people buying anything that's generated by AI? When you see sites like Night Cafe or Leonardo AI, Design is another one that comes up, Dream by Wombo, these are all websites that market AI solutions. Some are free, some are paid. People seem to be really into it from a creation perspective. And I think one of the reasons is it's so easy to use. It's really easy to use and it's really hard to master. And like any great sport, it could be football or baseball, basketball, hockey, it's easy to learn. You can learn it in one day, but it takes a lifetime to master these sports. So you have to ask yourself, why are people so interested in making AI designs? I think one of the reasons is because it's just text to image. You just type in a text, so you're really just limited to your imagination. You're not typing in lines of code. I'm so old. When I was in grade school, so like grades 3, 4, 5, that kind of thing, I learned how to program. If you can imagine a room full of little children, and it's like a little North Korean sweatshop, we're all sitting there learning how to type code, because the world in the 1980s and the 1990s was a coding world. There wasn't huge user interfaces that were super easy to use. You would often just stare at a computer screen that was black, and then you had to type in some text in order to make anything happen. My childhood computer growing up is so obscure, I can't imagine anybody would even remember the name of it. It was called a Chromemco, and it was a business computer my dad brought home, and the only thing it could really do was play chess on it. And then we eventually learned how to use Word and then Excel. And these were programs that were relatively easy to learn versus the old days where you were keying in code. So we've come a long way throughout my lifetime from people barely understanding what a computer is to households having multiple computers. If you think about phones, iPads, laptops, desktops, and of course your television has a computer technology built inside of it as well. You've got PVRs and DVRs. The world really is moving more and more towards computers. Of course, you add in the internet, and that really sticks a rocket ship on this whole thing and blasts it off into the stratosphere. So the question that we want to answer is, how do we take advantage of AI, or do we want to take advantage of AI? I really want to talk for a second about how creepy some of the AI things are that I've seen over the last, say, year and a half. If you go onto YouTube and you type in the name of your favorite rock song, and then you type in the name of an artist who has died, it's possible to get back lyrics and a song by that dead artist. I've done this with Kurt Cobain, who is the famous lead singer of Nirvana, and it doesn't even need to be dead people. It could be people that are alive as well. So I'm a big 90s music fan. You can type in Green Day, but it sounds like the Smashing Pumpkins. And I'm sure you've seen AI fakes either in news articles or even just on Facebook feeds or YouTube videos where there's people talking and they're not really the person. Somebody stuck a face on another person and all of a sudden you've got a fake person. So this is all kind of creepy, right? Because when you're hearing a song being sung by someone that's no longer alive and you know they never really sang the song, it doesn't feel well on some level. And I think this is unique in many ways because it's art. So we're talking about a common denominator here with a lot of this. We're talking about play. We're talking about artwork, songs. It could be visual art, could be audio art. And artwork has always been a uniquely human endeavor. Yes, you're going to hear the occasional news article about a monkey who grabbed a paintbrush and he slapped something together and it sells for $1 billion. But I'm talking about, generally speaking, artwork is something that's been a uniquely human endeavor. And as such, it's a little bit disturbing when we see a Japanese robot painting Or if we see a robot dog playing and you're like, well, this isn't really a real dog, and yet it's acting as if it's a real dog. One of the creepiest things I've ever seen is a human robot. It's a robot that looks like a human being. And when you see a face, but it's not quite human, it's really disturbing. And there's actually a scientific phenomenon that this is nested under. There's this thing called the Uncanny Valley. If you Google Uncanny Valley, it's pretty neat. You see a whole lot of pictures of robots with human faces. And the general idea is that the greater the human likeness, the more affinity or the more we like this thing. And so an example would be an industrial robot we have very little affinity for. We don't want to hug an industrial robot, right? So just imagine a faceless automaton working in a factory building a car, for example. We're not going to go up and want to hug this machine. It's just basically a big furnace with some arms that's making a piece of a car. So an industrial robot has very low affinity. But if you look at a stuffed animal, for example, Cabbage Patch Kid or Teddy Ruxpin, a teddy bear, these are things that sort of look human. They have eyes, they've got ears, 2 legs, 2 arms. These are things that are starting to approach what a human looks like, and our affinity for it goes up. Well, then, when we get really close to what an actual human looks like, the affinity actually goes way down. And there's a couple examples here. One would be a human corpse. If we see a dead person, it's actually very disturbing. And we have to get past that feeling of revulsion. Now I'm talking about TV or a movie. I'm not talking about obviously in real life. If a loved one passes away, of course, that's completely different. But if you're watching a movie and somebody is killed in the movie and now they're laying there as a dead person, it's a little bit disturbing. You don't want to go up and go, oh, isn't this the cutest thing ever? That's not an affinity. Another thing would be a zombie. So if you ever watch Walking Dead and you see these supposedly dead people wandering around, it's very creepy, right? And the reason it's creepy is not only because they're trying to eat your brains, but it's also creepy because it looks so lifelike. They look like regular people, albeit they might have an arm fallen off. Now, when we get to closer and closer to a human being, it jumps back up to the point where we do have an affinity for it. So a healthy human or a very attractive human, we would find we have a lot of affinity for, generally speaking, even if we don't want to. So sometimes you'll see things like in elections, the really good-looking candidate gets all the votes, and it's like, well, that's not fair. It doesn't mean he's or she is the best candidate. It just means they won the genetic lottery and they happen to be a good-looking person. But that's the way sometimes society works. Right or wrong, that's the way we're wired. So I'm talking about the creepy robot that has a human face. And if you see this, if you Google this, lifelike robot, you get back some creepy looking photos. Now, I don't claim to be some major expert in why it's creepy, but there's something about AI that is acting as if it's a human, but it's not a human. And there's something hardwired, I think, in our brains that this is a bit disturbing. And I think we've seen this with AI artwork, we see this with AI video, and it's certainly not a condemnation of AI, but we're going to need to get over this if we're going to continue to use it. I'm basing a lot of this podcast on comments that I've received on my YouTube channel. So I've got 2 channels. One is called Zen Watercooler, and the other one's called Crafty Stacks. And so if you're interested in either one, make sure to check them out. Shameless plug alert. So one of the things that I notice is whenever I post an AI video, the vast majority of the comments are positive. People are saying, wow, thank you very much. This is a great tool. This will help me make some sales. This will help me in my art project, whatever the comment is. But I get the occasional negative video, and people simply don't want to purchase AI artwork. This is the comment. People will say, I don't personally want to purchase AI art. Why is that? Well, I think one of the main reasons is that because art has always been a uniquely human endeavor, we wind up with people who don't want to support something that feels fake. So why do people hate AI? I think one of the main reasons is it's an unknown, and I think it gets hyped up in the media a lot. I think a big piece of the hatred for AI, if you do have this proclivity, is that it seems to be sucking away the artistic value that a human being is providing. So if you're a writer, for example, you may have run into this recently. You've spent hours and hours writing a short story, crafting a plot and themes, or maybe you've spent countless hours producing a novel or even a nonfiction book that's artistically written. And all of a sudden you see you're now competing with AI-written essays, AI-written books. So imagine a computer now can write a 300-page novel, and it can sell on Amazon and sit right next to your book that you've spent a year trying to make. Now, right now, in the year 2024 or 2025 or later, depending on when you're listening to this, I'm not seeing a massive influx of really well-written novels that are 300 pages long selling on Amazon. But I could certainly imagine the day when this does happen. I could certainly picture a future, and a not too distant future, where suddenly you're purchasing a novel and it's the exact writing style of your favorite author, and this person never wrote it. Or imagine going on to YouTube or your favorite app like Spotify and listening to music that the artist never created. I think this would be really strange, because it makes you wonder, what is it about art that resonates? So one of the things that resonates when you're talking about artwork is an emotional response. I think this is one of the things that comes up when you see a beautiful painting or when you listen to a beautiful piece of music. It stirs something inside our soul, if you believe in a soul, or it stirs something inside our psyche, if you believe in a psyche. And I think it really speaks to our humanness that we love beautiful art, whether it's visual art or songs. And then to learn that this is not being created by a human, it really underscores the loneliness that we may feel as a human being in this endeavor. So one of the things that I personally have experienced, I've been to the Louvre a few times. I've been to other art galleries like the Uffizi Gallery in Florence and also the Prado Gallery. I love traveling Europe and looking into art galleries. And one of the things that I really love when I'm in these galleries is I really immerse myself in the history of the art. So I'm staring at a painting and I'm like, wow, a human being made this hundreds of years ago. And then I learn about the person. I go and I Google them, or maybe there's a little piece in the art museum that I can read about them. And I really feel like this is a legacy that a person has left for fellow humans to consume and to enjoy. It's the same thing with a great piece of music, right? You can listen to somebody who's no longer here and you can think, wow, this is their legacy. Well, AI sort of undermines that whole process in some ways, because I think a lot of us would feel betrayed or fooled if we were listening to an amazing piece of art, maybe a great song, and all of a sudden we realized a machine made it. Or we looked at a beautiful painting and we realized, oh, it's just a regular photograph that was put through a filter. And I think there's a piece of our brains that currently we can see this or we can detect it. I've even had this feedback on my channel where I've had people say, is this AI generated voice? And it's like, well, no, it's me. I'm a human being. Maybe I need to get my oil changed once in a while, but I mean, it's certainly myself. And so I don't know, is that a compliment? Is that a insult? I don't really know, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think that if I wanted to take it as an insult, it's that my voice maybe sounds professional but lacks soul. Well, that would be awful, right? Because I think I'm a pretty funny guy. I think I'm a pretty good guy. But maybe that's the way it's coming across sometimes when I'm doing a video. I don't know. Or maybe it's a compliment. Maybe somebody's saying, wow, the robot really figured out how to sound like a human being. And it's like, well, thank you very much. My friends think I'm wonderful too. So I don't know. It's one of these things where AI is still a mystery to me in many ways. And I think it'll continue to be a mystery as we continue to explore. So a big question that I think I have an answer to is, why do people hate AI? one of the reasons anyway, I think, is that there's a lot of low quality artwork that's currently sitting online that doesn't really resonate with humans. When you look at a true masterpiece by an artist, I'm talking about Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, something like that. These are emotion-invoking masterpieces for many, many people. And we often will see low-quality artwork sitting on an AI website that just simply does not resonate. It looks crappy. I mean, we've got a human with 3 hands. We've got a cat with 5 legs. We've got 2 suns in the sky. This doesn't, like, the robot's not even getting the basics down. We've also had other experiences, I think, that taint our experience with AI art. And it's not fair, but this is the way it works. You phone up a company and you talk to a robot. And the robot sounds like a human. It says, "Hi, welcome to blah, blah company. Press 1 for here, press 2 for here." Or my favorite is when it says, "Just tell me what your problem is." And it's like, oh my God, now I have to talk to this robot bodyguard to try to convince it that I'm worthy of speaking to an agent that can actually help me. And of course, many comedy movies are filled with this trope where you're trying to get the computer to do something for you and you're giving it voice commands and it doesn't really understand what you're asking. A common example is if you're using Siri in the car, how many of us have screamed at Siri or screamed at Google Maps or whatever the AI-generated intelligence is that's inside your car or inside your phone. You're screaming at it to try to do something, and it's not understanding the search. It's not understanding the navigation. So AI artwork can also fall into this realm where you type in a relatively simple text into the window, you hit generate, and you get back this monstrosity that doesn't in any way look like what you were hoping to have. And that can be frustrating, right? So we typically blame the AI for that. So a whole lot of the appeal of artwork is that we have a fundamental understanding of what it means to be human. I would encourage you to go online and Google artwork from another civilization or from another part of the world. So if you live in the Western Hemisphere, look up Eastern Hemisphere artwork like Asia or African art. And if you're living in the East, like if you're living in Asia or Africa, look up North American or European art, and you might find that there's some huge similarities to the artwork because often artwork features human beings. So even though we're very different culturally, we share a lot of the same values in beauty or in the humanness that is our artwork. So I've spent a lot of time here complaining in this podcast or trying to explain why people are complaining about artificial intelligence. So the big question then becomes, how do we use artificial intelligence to our advantage? And going forward, what's the landscape really going to look like? So the biggest recommendation I have is a simple one, but I think it's useful. I would encourage you to use AI as a tool, the same as you would use the internet as a tool or Photoshop as a tool. You want to use these as tools. You don't want to let Photoshop create your design. You don't want to let the internet create your design. You should be the artist. And I'll give you a really basic example of this. I think that what happens is people in the print-on-demand world, some people in the print-on-demand world, they get very excited seeing artificial intelligence. And I'm basing this on emails that I get. I'm basing this on comments that I get. They get excited about the prospect of having the robot do all the work, and they're going to sit back and take all the money. So an example would be, okay, I've got these big dreams of becoming a millionaire, billionaire. So what I'm going to do is generate 30 pieces of AI art per day. And then I'm going to run it through an automated uploader that's going to upload these designs onto Redbubble or Merch by Amazon or TeePublic. And then the sales will just roll in, and I will just have this workshop with robot slaves that are creating artwork, uploading the artwork, tagging the artwork, and then Redbubble or TeePublic or Merch by Amazon is going to sell. I don't have to do anything. I can sit here and play my video game all day long while the computer's making me money. I think this is the dream that some people have. And I just don't think at this day and age, I don't think it's a realistic dream. And I'll tell you why. I think one of the reasons why it won't work is that the barrier to entry in this case is too low. If you can just get the computer to make the work, and you can get the computer to upload the work, and then another company sells the work, the big question is, what do we need you for? You're not really providing any value because anybody could do this. If you're sitting in your basement cranking out 30 designs a day using simple text, why can't somebody else do it? There's just no barrier to entry, right? Imagine on the flip side, you've got an artist who's spent years, they've gone to art school, they've spent years toiling away in their workshop, failing, and then suddenly they have a breakthrough moment. They found their art technique. They found their art style. They come out to an art show. People are gobsmacked. They can't believe how beautiful this artwork is. Well, it's because they've spent hundreds and maybe thousands of hours working at their craft. And I think that as a human, we respect that. We go, wow, this is not something that I myself could make, and therefore I'm willing to part with money in order to get it. I'm living proof of this with inked commissions. So one of the things that I do for fun is I will take a comic book cover and I'll strip it of its inks. So using Photoshop, I'll render my comic book cover. It could be a Spider-Man cover or Superman, Batman, and I'll make the artwork very, very light to the point where you can barely see it. And then using pens, inked black India ink pens, I will ink over the artwork and I will basically recreate the art, but I'll add some of my own little flourishes to it as well. And then I sell this. I'll sell it on eBay or I sell it to friends and family. I've got an art website that people will purchase. I'm currently working on some commissions right now for a nice gentleman in Germany. And one of the things that I think is appealing about this type of art is that even though ultimately it looks like the photocopy that they originally wanted, they look at the Amazing Spider-Man cover and they say, oh, can you make this? And I say, yes. I spent hours and hours and hours recreating it by hand. Well, it winds up looking almost identical to the photocopy. So why aren't people just making a photocopy and hanging that on their wall? And there's something about original art that's handmade that speaks to our soul as consumers. So where does this leave us with AI artwork? Because AI artwork is not this. It's not handcrafted artwork that's going to take hours and hours to generate. So is there a space for AI artwork? I think the answer is yes. One of the things that I use with AI is I will use it as a tool as part of the process, but not the whole process. So I will create, for example, a PNG image of a cute cat or a dragon or a unicorn, but then I will add funny text underneath it. Or I will add from my graphic of a bird or a flag or something, I will add the name of a city or the name of a region. So I'm putting my stamp on this design to make it connect with the viewer, with the listener, with the buyer. So the end of the day here, what you want to do is provide value for your clients. So you have to ask yourself, what are clients looking for when they go onto sites like Redbubble and TeePublic and Merch by Amazon? This is a question that has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. So there's a little exercise you can run if you're ever interested. I like to bury all the helpful tips here at the back end of the podcast, my apologies. But one of the things you can do is take your iPad or take your computer or just ask your friend. Go to a friend, go to a family member and say, hey, can you go onto Redbubble and can you find me your favorite shirt? Now, the first thing they're going to ask you is, oh, well, what's the reason I'm buying the shirt? I guarantee you that's what they're going to ask, unless they're just really kind of lazy and they just go, I'll find a good looking shirt. But they'll typically say, well, wait a minute, why am I buying the shirt? Is it somebody's birthday? Is it an anniversary gift? Do I need a formal shirt? Do I need a funny shirt? They're going to ask you some qualifying questions because this is what customers do. They don't go onto Redbubble and just randomly search for stuff. What they do is they go onto Redbubble typically with a purchase in mind. I need to buy grandpa a shirt because he's retiring. I need to buy my wife a shirt because I'm in the doghouse and I need to buy a shirt to help me get out of the doghouse. So these are reasons that people go onto Redbubble or Merch by Amazon to look for a shirt, birthdays, celebrations, and so on. So knowing that this is the reason that people are going online and purchasing things, you can use AI artwork to create emotionally resonant designs. But I wouldn't recommend that you just create a design like a picture and just throw up the picture. I'd recommend that you use something to make it resonate with people. You could have it in a frame. You could physically crop the image. You could add in text. You could pastiche together different artificial intelligence generated images to make a unique landscape. Or you can just really, really get good at the text prompts, or you can put in an image as a baseline, because you can do image to image inside of artificial intelligence as well. Many platforms offer image to image technology. You can take somebody's portrait, like a photograph of them, and you could run it through an AI filter to make them look like a princess or a pirate or a dragon. You can really make it resonate with the client. What you're trying to do is give the customer an emotional response. And if you can do that, you will make a sale, whether you use artificial intelligence or not. I really hope you found this podcast helpful. I love talking shop. I'd love to hear a comment down below if you like this, or just hit a thumbs up, whatever you like. I really appreciate your time. I really hope you've got some value out of this. I've got other podcasts on this channel as well, so make sure to check them out. You can go to playlist and you can look up podcasts, and then you can spend hours and hours hopefully learning and being entertained. Bye for now. We'll talk again soon.